Hey, it's Moses here. I know. Some of y'all probably like, wait, the dude with some anger issues? Yeah, that's me. But hey, before you start throwing all those questions in the comments, let me talk. It's been crazy, man. I've been out here leading my people for 40 years. 40. And these people, man, they don't listen, ever. Anyways, look, we're finally at the edge at least. The light at the end of the wilderness. I'm talking about the promised land. Milk, honey, vibes, all of it. Honestly, I've been dreaming about this moment. But between you and me, I don't know if the big boss, yeah, I'm talking about Yahweh, is even gonna let me in. We had a little situation back there. You'll find out later. It's kinda complicated. Still, whether I step foot in there or not, I've got some real stuff to say. I'm talking about stuff I learned the hard way. And if there's one thing I've learned out here in this big sandbox, it's this. You snooze, you end up wandering in circles for decades. So yeah, let's get straight at this. So here's the setup. The people are standing right at the edge of everything they've been waiting for. Like literally looking at the promised land in 4K. They've got dust on their faces, sandals worn down to nothing, and 40 years worth of frustration sitting on their shoulders. The sun's hot, spirits are tired, and nobody's trying to admit it. But everyone's a little nervous. Because crossing over means change. It means letting go of what held them back and stepping into something that doesn't come with a map. And right before they move, Moses stops them. Not to be dramatic, but kind of like when your best friend catches you before you text your toxic ex again. He's like, nah, y'all not gonna just walk up in there and forget everything that happened? And then he starts running it back, full memory dump, from Horeb to Kadesh, from bad decisions to big mercy. And he doesn't hold back. He reminds them how God was like, time to move out, and they did until they reached Kadesh Barnea. That place? Who? That was the flop of the decade. The moment where they could have claimed everything, but instead froze like they saw their ex at church. They sent spies into the land, and when those spies came back with talk of giants and chaos, fear won. They doubted not just the land, but God. Moses doesn't roast them, but he also doesn't baby them. He tells them straight up, it wasn't the giants that blocked you, it was your mindset. Like God had the door wide open, and they slammed it shut out of fear. And because of that, the whole generation got benched. 40 years in the wilderness, not because God was being petty, but because he wasn't about to bless a crew who refused to believe him even after all they'd seen. And here's where it hits. Moses was there for all of it. The crying, the tantrums, the midnight, we should go back to Egypt, rants. And now he's speaking to their kids. The ones who only knew the desert. The ones who heard stories about Egypt but never touched bricks or saw a whip. And he's like, yo, this ain't just history. This is a warning. You don't gotta repeat their mistakes just because you carry their last name. But he doesn't stop with the L's. He talks about how God still moved. Even in the wilderness, they didn't lack. Shoes stayed intact. Victories still happened. They defeated kings, Sihon and Og, when they didn't even have full formation. God was still showing out, even when they were in timeout. That part hits. Because sometimes, even when you're off track, God still keeps the light on for you. So yeah, Moses making sure they don't start this new season with an old heart. Because the real story isn't just about where they're going. It's about who they choose to be when they get there. The vibe changes fast. Moses goes from storyteller to straight up coach. His voice is steady, but you can tell there's urgency underneath. Because once they cross over, it's game time. Everything they prayed for is finally within reach. And Moses knows that's exactly when people start getting sloppy. He tells them, look, Y'all are about to be surrounded by new people, new cultures, new gods, new temptations. And I'm telling you right now, don't forget the one who got you here. Not in a threatening way, but in that tone like your grandma uses when she hands you something priceless and says, "Don't lose this." He's reminding them who carried them when they were weak, who fed them when they were broke, who stayed when everyone else lost faith. That's why he says, don't add to the word. Don't take away from it. Just keep it close. Then comes the Shema, one of the most iconic drop-the-mic moments in the whole book. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Love him with all your heart, soul, and strength. Moses isn't talking about religion. He's talking relationship. Not a part-time loyalty or occasional prayer when life's falling apart. He's saying, this love is your foundation. Everything else, it builds on that. And he knows how forgetful people can get when life finally gets good. He's like, when you're living in houses you didn't build, eating food you didn't plant, don't start acting brand new. Because success has a weird way of making people think they made it on their own. Moses had seen it before. And honestly, we've seen it too. How many times do we beg God for a breakthrough, only to ghost him the second the Wi-Fi reconnects and the bank account hits triple digits? This wasn't just about staying loyal, it was about staying grounded. Moses is like, don't carry desert energy into a destiny that needs discipline, because old habits, if left unchecked, will sneak in and sabotage new seasons. You can't hold on to survival mode when God's trying to hand you abundance. You ever outgrow a toxic situation, but still think with the same fear you had in it? That's what Moses was trying to break. He wasn't just shouting rules, he was dropping anchors. Anchors to keep them from drifting when culture, pressure, and distractions came swinging. Because when you don't know what roots you, anything can pull you. Moses knew the wilderness didn't break them, but forgetting who brought them through it just might. So he gave them the tools and told them, don't wait. When God says move, you move. The crowd's still standing, but Moses leans in a bit more, voice softer now, like he's not just trying to get them to listen, he's trying to get them to feel it. He says, you weren't chosen because you were the biggest squad or the baddest warriors. You were chosen because God loved you. Period, no audition, no resume, just straight love, before they even knew how to spell obedience. But you can tell he's seen what favor does to people, how blessings can turn folks prideful real quick. So he cuts through all the spiritual ego and says, when the winds start coming in, don't get cute. Don't start talking like, we earned this. Nah, y'all were out here building golden cows a few years ago. Let's not pretend. And even though he's being real, it's not mean. It's that older cousin energy, the one who calls you out but never counts you out. Then, he starts reminding them how they almost got wiped out for their stubbornness. How he had to step in and plead with God not to cancel the whole nation. He tells them about the time he came down from the mountain with the tablets, only to find them wilding out with idols. He literally smashed the 10 Commandments in rage. That's how bad it got. Moses was like, y'all couldn't even stay loyal for one mountain trip? But the point isn't to shame them. It's to show them that even at their lowest, God didn't back out. That kind of love, it doesn't wait for perfection. It's the type that stays when everyone else would have dipped. And Moses is basically saying, don't play dumb now. Don't act like you built this legacy on your own. If God didn't show up for you, you wouldn't even be breathing in this desert. It's like that friend who let you crash at their place when you had nothing, no job, no plan. And then, when you get your glow up, you start acting like you did it solo. That's the vibe Moses is warning against. He's like, don't do God like that. He didn't just provide for them, he fought for them, forgave them, fed them, and led them through every we should turn back moment they created for themselves. And through all of it, God never said, get it all right, and then I'll love you. Nah, he loved them first. That's why he chose them. That's why he stayed. And Moses doesn't want them to forget it. Not now, not ever. Because nothing wrecks a blessing faster than forgetting who gave it. And nothing poisons a calling faster than pride. Moses wasn't preaching rules in this moment. He was protecting identity. Because they didn't need to earn God's love. But they sure needed to stop acting like they found peace on their own. By this point, Moses knows how his people think. The second they hear rules, their eyes start glazing over like, here we go again. But he's not rattling off commands just to be extra. He's giving structure, and not the type that boxes you in, but the kind that keeps you from falling apart. Because Moses has seen what happens when people freestyle their faith with no boundaries. It doesn't end in freedom. It ends badly. So he steps in like, y'all need to understand something. This ain't control. This is protection. Instructions about how to worship, how to celebrate, how to care for the poor, how to stay fair when it comes to money and justice. God wasn't dropping a rule book to flex power. He was laying out a system to keep their hearts from breaking under pressure. It's easy to think structure means limitation, but Moses was trying to flip that mindset. He's saying, these laws are like emotional seatbelts. You don't buckle up because you're planning to crash. You buckle up because you care about surviving the journey. And when you're stepping into a land full of options, temptations, and voices pulling you in every direction, you need something solid to hold you down. The festivals, not just parties, they were rhythm. A way to pause, reset, remember who provided the harvest, and why joy without gratitude always leads to entitlement. The tithe, not a tax. A reminder that generosity isn't about giving what's extra. It's about recognizing it was never just yours to begin with. The laws about freeing servants, forgiving debts, releasing burdens every 7 years, that was divine social justice. God was way ahead of their time. Moses wasn't pitching a dictatorship, he was setting a culture. One where love actually had legs, where faith wasn't just vibes, it had action. Because when you enter a land where everyone's out for themselves, you better walk in knowing who you are, who you serve, and what you won't compromise. These weren't just dusty commands, they were lifestyle markers. So when life got loud, they'd still know how to move with purpose. Moses takes a breath, and then drops the part nobody ever wants to hear. How to pick the people who'll lead them when he's gone. The desert days are wrapping up, and Moses won't be there to break up arguments, settle drama, or step in when the crowd loses focus. So now he's looking ahead, like a mentor trying to make sure the next ones in charge don't crash the ship. He's not just thinking about kings and priests. He's thinking about voices, voices that influence, voices that set the tone for a whole generation. And Moses doesn't sugarcoat it. He basically says, if you're picking someone to lead just because they look good in a crown or talk loud in a crowd, you're already losing. He says kings and leaders aren't supposed to be clout chasers. They were supposed to be truth carriers. He calls for judges who don't take bribes, priests who don't twist the word, and prophets who don't say what people want just to get a standing ovation. That hit different because Moses had seen what happens when people put popularity over purpose. He's watched whole crowds get led into confusion because the person with the loudest voice also had the emptiest soul. And now, he's begging this new generation, don't fall for the show. Pay attention to the fruit. It's like when a person goes viral for saying something bold, but you find out later they're annoying behind the scenes. Moses was way ahead of the algorithm. He's like, just because someone has the mic doesn't mean they deserve the platform. And when it came to battle, he gave rules too. Don't let fear control your crew. If someone's too scared to fight, they're not bad people, but they shouldn't be in the front line. Because real leadership isn't about flexing. It's about protecting. About stepping into responsibility when it's inconvenient. About carrying the weight even when no one claps for you. Moses wasn't grooming influencers. He was raising guardians, and his warning was clear. At first glance, The next part feels like Moses just started pulling laws out of a hat. 1 minute, he's talking about returning lost donkeys. Next, it's marriage rules, then out of nowhere, justice for the most random scenarios. But if you slow down and actually listen, there's a thread weaving through all of it. Moses isn't rambling. He's laying out what it actually means to live different. Not flashy different. Not, look at me, I'm holier than you, different. No, this is real different. It was about how you move through everyday life when no one's watching. Returning stuff that isn't yours. Making space for outsiders. Treating vulnerable people, widows, servants, orphans, not like charity cases, but rather like family. Moses wasn't handing out moral badges. He was giving them a framework to treat people better than they had been treated in Egypt. And that hits hard when you think about it. The same people who knew what it felt like to be oppressed were now being told, never become what you escaped from. He talks about setting boundaries in relationships, about not exploiting the weak or taking advantage of power dynamics, because Moses had seen what unchecked behavior could do to a community. He wasn't just trying to keep them clean, he was trying to keep them human. He wanted them to live in a way that if someone bumped into them on the street, they'd feel something different. Not superior, not fake nice, just your real humble self. Because the real mark of holiness, it's not in your clothes or your playlist or how many verses you can quote. It's in how you move, how you protect peace, how you carry grace in the middle of a world that loves drama. Moses wanted them to stand out, not for being louder, but for being better at love, the kind that bears God's name without saying a word. Now, Moses has been talking for what feels like hours, and now the sun's starting to dip behind the hills. The people are leaning in, dusty and wide-eyed, waiting for whatever final word he's about to drop. And Moses doesn't waste the moment. He takes a breath, like it's the last one before a storm, and says, "Today, I put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life." And yeah, it sounds poetic, but it was raw, loud, a punch straight to the chest. This was Moses basically saying, look, I've watched you fail, cry, panic, repent, fall again, get picked back up, and I'm telling you, your next move matters. This choice wasn't about a someday heaven or fire insurance from hell. It was about now, about whether they'd walk into their new season with peace or drag the weight of old mess behind them. He tells them, if they obey, blessings will follow, fields will produce, families will thrive, peace will stick. But if they play games, if they switch up on God when the land starts flowing and life gets comfortable, then those same blessings will flip and chaos will come with no warning. And it's not God being petty. Moses was done watching people fumble what God put in their hands. And then he hits them with something personal. He says, this word, this choice, it's not far. It's not above you. It's not across the sea. It's in your mouth. It's in your heart. Translation, you already know what's right. Stop acting confused. Stop waiting for a voice from the sky or a perfect moment. God already gave you everything you need. Now it's your time to move. Because here's the truth. Every day you're planting something. Either roots in purpose or roots in fear. Either life-giving rhythms or silent anxiety loops that start slow but eat at you over time. That voice in your head that says, you're not enough, you're not ready, don't even try. That's the stuff Moses wanted to break. He wanted them to know God was down to walk every step with them, but they had to walk too, not just talk, move, obey, choose. Moses gathers the people one last time. His voice is worn, but steady. He's not trying to command anymore. He's passing something down, not a crown, not a weapon, just leadership. He calls Joshua forward with a firm, quiet confidence, the kind that says, you got next, whether you feel ready or not. And then he speaks into each tribe, blesses them one by one, like someone who's watched them fall and get back up enough times to know what they'll need for what's coming. There's power in it. That kind of power only comes from walking with people through their worst and still choosing to hope for their best. And then, just like that, he climbs the mountain alone. No fanfare, no Instagram live, just him and God. He gets to see the land, the one he's been chasing for most of his life. He stands at the edge, eyes wide open, but he doesn't step in. God lets him look, not enter. And it's not a punishment anymore. It's closure. Moses didn't lose. He finished. His role wasn't to cross over. It was to carry them this far and make sure they had what they needed to go the rest of the way. And that's what makes it beautiful. He didn't die trying to build a platform. He died building people. He didn't chase credit. He gave instructions. His last act wasn't some dramatic miracle. It was a quiet exit, a silent log off. The kind you make when you know your job's done and your words will outlive your presence. Sometimes your role isn't to finish the story. It's to make sure the next one starts right. And Moses did that. He gave them rhythm, history, direction, correction, blessing, and love. And all of it without stepping foot in the place he'd dreamed about. That's legacy. Moses left scrolls, not selfies. And the mission? It's still running. Not because he shouted the loudest, but because he walked the longest, all the way to the edge. So yeah, you just vibed through Moses' last TED Talk before his mic dropped permanently. Man gave scrolls, sermons, and soul, then walked off into a mountain like a whole cinematic legend. But now what? Like, for real. What are you gonna do with everything he said? Because Deuteronomy isn't just old campfire stories, it's a mirror. And if we're being honest, some of y'all saw your whole reflection in that wilderness energy. Maybe you've been circling the same situation, blaming timing, blaming people, blaming God. But deep down, you've been leaving his messages on read, ghosting his nudges, distracted by noise that doesn't even feed you. And maybe that's cool for a while, but eventually you look up and realize you're standing still while everyone else is moving. And the thing is, God's not mad. He's just waiting for you to choose, to pick life, not just heaven someday, but peace right now, purpose right now. See, Moses wasn't just talking to desert kids, he was talking to us, the ones caught between I want better and I don't know how to start. And that voice in your chest that's been getting louder lately, that tug when you're alone at night, it's not anxiety, it's a call, a whisper saying, you already know what to do, stop playing confused. You don't need another sign, you just needed a reminder, and now you've got it. So yeah, before you swipe up or let another scroll take your attention hostage, pause. Just sit with it. Let the words hit for a second. If this episode cracks something open, drop a comment below. Tell us which part Moses low-key snapped on. If you know that one friend who's out there treating God like a side quest, share this with them. Might save them some desert miles. Just kidding. And don't forget to subscribe. Seriously, if you want more Bible stories that don't sound like you're being held hostage in Sunday school, we got you covered.